Welcome to Agribusiness Matters. My name is Venki Ramachandran. Agribusiness Matters is an endeavor to discover systems thinking in food and agriculture in an age of runaway climate change. Today, I have a very interesting set of guests who are from the hinterlands, doing incredible work while figuring out what it makes to make the rural India vibrant India. What is very interesting about these two guests is their life trajectories have been fairly similar in some sense, although they come from very different worlds. And I'll let more, before. I really don't want to do a formal introduction to both of you gentlemen, but thank you very, very much, Kunal and Tanmay, for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Great. So let me start off with some basic questions of, maybe I'll start off with Tanmay. Tanmay, when you look into your mirror and ask yourself, who is Tanmay? What is the first honest answer that comes to your mind?
An excited boy waking up in the morning and imagining what is the next big mischief he's going to do today.
Beautiful. Beautiful. What about you, Kunal?
Yeah, he stole my answer. But the honest truth is, I was telling somebody yesterday, that if you have to work in this sector in India, and if you can't sort of hold on to your boyhood, you're never going to find solutions.
Yeah.
Because India is a magic land, and it just gives me goosebumps where this country can be in about 30 to 50 years. If you're thinking anything less than 50 years, don't come into agriculture business.
Yeah, and I think, the fact that you are almost wanting to steal his lines is where the reason why both of you are in the same frame right now. Because in some sense, I have met both of you. I met Tanmay very recently, although I'd been in touch with Tanmay for a while. And Kunal, of course, I've had the pleasure of knowing for a very long time. In a sense, your life journeys have been very, very interesting, right? From from being in software world to running your own business, and then moving back to exploring into the social world for you, Tanmay. And for you, from the case for Kunal, I think, from being country head in Accenture to moving into senior manager and Make My Trip, to and one day deciding that I will join an organic farmer, Deepak Sachde, and working in the hinterlands. And likewise, you had also, Tanmay, you've met Sonal Wangchuk in Ladakh. In these kind of life trajectories of people, like whatever life I've seen, I've also been very lucky to meet some people who've transformed my lives, and I think Kunal knows really whom I'm talking about.
Yeah.
In many ways, when these trajectories change, we find it very difficult to articulate to others how did we make this shift, and maybe that's the first question I want to explore with both of you is, in what ways do you kind of connect back the dots? Do you see that it's all inevitable, or do you just go with the flow? How do you connect the dots backward, right?
Tanmay?
Okay, so thanks. I started off my career as an industrial engineer with Saint-Gobain Vetrotex, then moved on to Infosys, and I had my beautiful US posting due when summer vacations, I used to work during my college days, school days in my father's factory. So I wanted to join the business, and they said, if you want to come back and join, then we'll pay you half the salary. Are you willing to join? I said, fair enough. And the next 25 years just disappeared. So, growing the business. So we were in the composites field, working with the automotives. So Volvo, Eicher, Force Motors, we were supplying parts to the London buses. And it was a very crazy life. So 24 hours, you are supplying parts just in time, direct online. The pressure was tremendous. Costs were low. Efficiencies had to be high. And I loved that situation. So I love problem solving. I loved the pressure. I had a very good friend of mine, a childhood friend from school, Gaurav. So Gaurav was a, free spirit. He was one of the best known bikers of India. His first documentary that he made got the national award. So he used to work a lot around in the Ladakh area, free riding. And whenever we school friends got together, every time we saw Gaurav, he said, yeah, this fellow is living our life. We are busy with the family life and all the responsibilities. And this fellow portrays and, gives us that joy when we see him that, somebody is doing what we all want to do in our lives. And around COVID, he passed away. And that, hit me very badly. He used to always say, let's all our friends, let's do a bike ride together. We'll go riding. And it never happened. So 2021, I did a solo trip from Kashmir to Ladakh to Manali, about 11 days. And those 11 days actually changed my life. So my perspective about what I wanted to do with my life, what I wanted to see, all those empty roads, riding a bullet and that tuck, 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 tuck sound and the wind blowing in your face. And it gave you a perspective. Your life flows in front of you and you realize, what am I doing exactly? And I'd been planning this for a couple of years. I told my family and our business colleagues that, I want to make an exit. So 25 years, I've grown the business from a small business, 30, 40 people to about 700 people business, 100 crores turnover, 4 plants. And I said, now it's the time that whatever I had to do in my life, I've done it. But I love problem solving. And when I travel all over the country, I used to realize, we are solving the wrong problems on a day-to-day basis. We were solving problems of corporate world, aaj itna gaadi bana, so many vehicles not made, this done, not done. And a lot of these problems were fictitious, unnecessary hype created and unnecessary pressures created. And then, so I realized there are bigger challenges and I wanted to go and work in the grassroots. So one fine day I said, enough, and I exited. It was planned. We had people coming in to replace me and everything. And then I reached out to Sonam Wangchuk in Ladakh, and he was quite excited when we met. So he said, we have a lot of ideas. Can you convert them with your experience into businesses? And that's where, working on the grassroots, what it meant, what is a contextual problem, how local problems are much more important than talking about lots of these global things. We keep talking about so many issues, but there are so many issues right around us. And that's what I learned there. And, that changed my life at that point. And I spent about a year with him converting all his ideas into businesses. We made passive solar rated houses right on the Chinese border for the army. We ran businesses along with created businesses for the homestays for the women in Ladakh so that, at least when they start earning, maybe their children start coming back to those homes rather than living into those, 1-bedroom apartment, 4 people living together in Delhi. And here you have acres of land available here. So it was quite a eye-opener at that point. And, those triggers brought me to where I am today. So maybe what I do a little later, but this is my journey of transformation.
So beautiful. I mean, in a way, I think Kunal, you also have spent time with, I think, Raju Titus, right?
Raju Titus, Deepak Suchdev.
And Deepak Sajde also. And I always, look at this whole aspect of, when we meet certain people, sometimes, and when we do these certain moments that happen in most of our lives, when we realize that the entire axis of change, x-axis has changed, y-axis has changed. What has been your journey from heading Accenture in India to being a manager, working with Deepak Kalra in Make My Trip and all? From there, how do you see this shift right now where you are right now?
Yeah, honestly, it's been magical for me. I think the only thing which was different for me is it was deliberate, but I didn't know what was coming tomorrow. So, for example, my brother was getting a PhD in public policy from University of Chicago, but his data collection was happening in India. So I knew exactly what was happening in India. My uncle was a dean at Accelerate. So I was a part of marketing fair and I knew exactly what kind of hearts work for India. India is a place of MSMEs. It's not a place of big, efficient organizations. That's not in our DNA. That's just not in our DNA. I went to Clemson, which was in South Carolina, and I ended up working with guys in the Department of Forestry because I had to learn experimental statistics. So I got exposed to what ecology is all about. Serendipity had nothing to do with what I had in my mind. I ended up working with a guy in cognitive psychology because he wanted me to understand how behavioral change is made when you're working on very complex social problems. Because I was working on a very complex social problem for a community near my university. And my advisor happened to go to Stanford for his master's, and he asked me to go to Stanford for my PhD. I said, "No, I'll figure something out." Because that desi mind, that jugadu mind, you give us the dots, we'll figure out what needs to be done. We don't need pedigree. It's important to get you a good job, but I'm a Punjabi man. Dhanda comes to me very naturally, right? It's just that I can't build a Google. That's because I don't want to build a Google. I want to build a small Google, right? That's how I was thinking. I was 30. I was giving interviews. I was a year away from my PhD. I was giving my interviews and I was like, Karna kya hai? What is it that you really want to do with your life? You can stay back. It's a good life. I just saw 3.2 TL being released by Acura. I wanted to buy that baby. And I was like, it's a good life. But it was clear that I had to go back. Some of my members on my committee, they were telling me, why don't you go back? I mean, you know so much. I wanted to come back to India and actually create an idea. I was so damn influenced by problem solving, like Tanmay is saying. I wanted to make India's first IDEO. Again, serendipity comes in, and the first job posting I get is in New York, but I also get a job in India, an American company, which is now based out of Bangalore and Bombay, but the CEO went to Oroville, never left Oroville. So he says, come to Oroville, help me build the R&D center. And I reach Oroville, and I'm like, यही तो बनाना है इंडिया के लिए. This is what you need to make, and you need to make like a million Orovilles, not one, not two. You need to work on panchayat level, and that's it. You do that, everything else will be taken care of. But I didn't have money. So I had to pay the dues. I had to work corporate, but my holidays were spent interning with farmers. My holidays were spent going to orphanages and looking at what the kids are doing. My holidays were spent driving around India and trying to figure out what is it that India needs. Again, serendipity hits me. I had a boss who wanted to do a conference for emerging markets, says, go around the country, drive around, see what India needs. I'm like, I'll go. But if I come back and tell you what India needs, will you execute it? He said, yeah, we'll do it. And like Tanmay took his Enfield, I bought my dad's old Maruti 800 for 65,000 bucks. And on the 2nd of March, 2010, I start driving. There's a IIT Kanpur master's student, brilliant guy, who was my RA on that 16-day, 15-day journey. Blew me away. Blew me away. Yeah.
No, see, let's also be, at one level, realize that this is a very, very small segment of people who are able to do this kind of thing.
You'll be surprised, Venkat. You'll be surprised. You go into the hinterland, you have no idea the amount of people, the amount of work which is happening. It's a common misconception. They don't know English. They don't have a mobile phone. They won't come and talk to you. It's a misconception. The number of engineers I work with, talk to on a daily basis out of the hinterland, mind blown. Look at the country. It's running on farmers and MSMEs. You think they don't know what needs to be done? Are you kidding me? No. ये narrative में थोड़ा सा change लाना पड़ेगा. There are a lot of people who are doing better work than us.
Yeah, and I think what I meant to say was, like, at one level, the people who are able to see this, right, is a very small segment of people.
Good
People
point.
who are able to see this, that who are able to see that this country is a bustling, thriving ecosystem of varied kinds of enterprises who constitute the warp and woof of this country's economic fabric. Right.
Yeah.
And what we see in urban cities is a very, very small segment. And to a large extent in my travels, what I'm also noticing, there is a certain sense of fatigue that has already kicked in urban cities, where people don't want to now, people are not really enthused by the ideas of building thriving ecosystems in around their cities. Rather, people are wanting to go back to their roots, to their villages, and see what is it that they are doing. Right. So, the question I'm
Agreed.
kind of very eager to look at it is, yeah, Tanmay.
No, I was just seconding what Kunal said, that today 95% of India is actually micro enterprises. In the developed world, you have 40% micro, small and medium, another 20, large, another 20. India has what is called the missing middle. So basically, these are the small businesses and small enterprises which are running the country 95%. Small, medium come to another 4%, and large is only 1%. We get enamored by what the big players are doing and what they are doing and what not they are doing, but it's only 1% of the economy. And when you talk about these 95%, they are your small sabji wala in your cities, the small chai wala, the puncture repair shop. And when you go to the village, it's a whole different economy. You go to a small village, you'll find 20, 30 kirana shops being run out of houses. It's just a supplemental income. Everything is a supplemental income, which can supplement the farm income.
Yeah.
So it's a different world, and it needs a different eye to go there. Unless you go down into the grassroots, you don't really realize, what's it that you're talking about. So seconding what Kunal said.
And that's exactly what I want to explore this part, right? In terms of that, this mindset is a very different mindset when it comes to the kind of problem solving we are habituated in a certain middle class mindset, right? When we go in, I mean, all of us grew up in urban cities, in schools and in institutions. And then when we express or see ourselves in a new world, we kind of discover that almost we have to do a lot of unlearning, right?
Absolutely.
So my question is around that in terms of what has been your most insightful or probably top 3 things that you had to really unlearn to discover solutions and build businesses, like in terms of for this kind of a world.
So I'll go at it. So the first thing that you go to a different location. So like I was corporate automotive, the niche of so everything is just in time, everything is low cost, everything is super efficient. Every small incident has a root cause analysis and a corrective action, preventive action plan. When you go to the grassroots, you realize that, first of all, you have to say that you have not come here for problem solving. Unless you learn that trick, you are not going to work. So all that you need to do is go and listen to people. Just listen. Connect with people. Gain the trust. And then 99% of my case, what I have worked with, it's the people who tell you the answers.
Yeah.
I never problem solve.
Yeah.
I only get the answers out of them. And then maybe trigger those sparks, where I say, what if we did this? Like a fool, I will ask them. Okay. And they will say, no, this will fail. This creates this. Does this work? Does this work? They say, try kar sakte. We can try this. We can try this. And then all that you do is create a structure where they keep trying that, and maybe slight maneuvering, slight hand holding, connect them to better answers, connect the dots. Unless they develop the ownership, you are not going to implement any solutions. No problems. It's their answers, their context, and they know about it. You can't go with a mindset that you're going to come from a high pedestal and teach them things. No, it doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
That's the only mindset I go with. I am a keen listener. I listen to everybody and connect humanly with them. That's the most important. If they trust me, they will listen to me. If I don't develop a trust, I'm just another, smart aleck coming from the city trying to talk on nonsense. That's my formula always.
Kunal, what has been your biggest unlearning?
Yeah, there are 2 things which are happening. One is I can totally see why Tanmay and I are together on this. And the second thing, he's stealing all my answers. But let me give you a real world example. I'm in a place in Maharashtra. The problem we are trying to solve for is that there is deer meandering into the tuar ka khet, and the tigers are coming behind the tuar, not the tuar, but actually the deer. How do you solve that problem? But simple, no? It's very simple. We are engineers, we have sensors. Solve it. Their solution is very simple. So they have a machan at the center of the village. There are 2 people who are on top of that machan. There are 4 threads going on each of the directions. There is a bamboo stick there is an inverted coracle kind of a material. There is a thick wooden piece which is hanging from the center of the inverted coracle, and those threads go to the machan, and the people there are, holding the threads. I'm sleeping, but my partner is taking care of keeping a vigil. I can sense where the tiger is coming from. I start pulling the thread, and the wooden plank hits against the coracle. There is vibration, it's a frequency. The tiger thinks it's a bigger animal, goes in another direction. 40% of tour is safe. How the hell can you imagine that sitting in an air conditioned room in Bangalore or in Mumbai? And what Tanmay says is right. I saw that, I heard that, and I was like, dude, I cannot be a frugal engineer. So I better start listening to what they want, almost become like a frugal VC, because they know how to give you ROI like you can't even imagine. So my role has actually changed over a period of time to be a listener, be a networker, be a guy who's a frugal VC who helps them sort of solve their own problems. And before you know, Venki, every company I work with in the hinterland is profitable in a year and less. Every company, every company, every company. And the seed capital, not more than 1 lakh.
Beautiful.
Wonderful. You know, see, I'll maybe share a recent experience that happened to me in Orissa. I was in this place called Mohuda, where I was attending a conference. And in this conference, a group of youngsters from the neighboring villages in Orissa had all gathered. And we were doing this workshop where we asked them, what are your what all you have. Typically, we tend to ask when urbanites come to villages, we say, what you don't have, right? But we asked a different question. We asked, what all you have? And initially, they were like wondering what to say. And then they started telling me different things like, we have the best mango, we have this, that, this is grown, this is famous, this is there. And then we asked them a next question. How many of you think you are poor? Believe me or not, 95% rose raised their hand. And that is, in a sense, the irony that a lot of us see, in witness in rural India. Even though there is a certain form of wealth, there is a certain sense of conditioning or whatever you want to say, right? There is a certain sense where they think that they are poor. And somewhere, it is we who have given them a certain definition of a certain sense of poor that they measure themselves with. Right? How do you tackle this aspect of because I think that's been the struggle that I've also seen whenever I do these travels and when I might travels also, right? That there is a certain sense of I don't know how to put it, right? In a certain sense of like where you feel there is a certain sense of scarcity, or where you see that I can't do this. Have you encountered such kind of situations where you've seen this there? What has been your learnings?
I'll let Kunal go so that I can steal it. I can claim he's stolen my answer.
So 2 parts to that. I was in Chhattisgarh and I told a farmer, your house looks in shambles. Can I sort of fund the repair? And he's very confused by this point in time. He's like, how are you gonna repair the forest? And I'm like, no, your house. And he's still more confused. So I'm sure that I'm not getting his context. And we talk. So for them, the house is the abundant forest. The house here is a place where their livestock, their motorcycle, their bikes, and they themselves go to rest at night for whatever reasons. And the answer to your question is yes, there is a level of hierarchy, there is a level of aspiration, there is a level of wanting to have arrived. But I think that's the challenge. And the way I deal with it is like Tanmay saying, listening, having very vulnerable conversations is important. And most people can't do that because you have to give them the sense that, look, what I have money. This is solving one level of the problem, but you have so much which I don't have. Can we sort of connect and build something which is of utility so that you gain out of this entrepreneurship and I gain out of that entrepreneurship? And that conversation, initially, they'll push you back and they'll push you hard because they're not used to kindness. They're not used to generosity. They're not used to vulnerability because they have to survive. And they'll push you back. And I've been pushed back. I was pushed back so hard that where I was an apprentice, I had to leave that place and vanish for about 10, 11, 12 months because I didn't have answers. I didn't have answers. I didn't have answers to the questions you were just asking, but I had to come back. And then I had to get on the tractor. I had to sleep with them. I had to work with them. I had to be a part of their culture and festivities and problem solving and business building, and pick up the tasla and pick up the cow dung and get my hand cut and go get stitches. That's how you earn respect. You can't earn respect by just conversation. So you have to prove to them that in your mind, does not matter what the world thinks. You can't change the narrative of the aspirational hierarchy. All you can do is, as an example, come in front of them and say, I'm here. बताओ क्या करना है, धंधा करना है ना, कैसे करना है बताओ, नहीं पता है, मेरे पास पैसा है, धंधा नहीं आता मेरे को, बताइए कैसे करना. Simple. Their ROIs, their numbers come from a land which I can't even explain, man. It just, I've never seen anyone use like a pencil and a paper and a calculator in the hinterland. All those numbers are just here. So you have to go there with pure humility, vulnerability, authenticity, and say, like Tanmay is saying, I want to learn. I'm not leaving you. I want to learn. You push me away, I'll come back again. You'll push me hard, I'll come back harder. I had to gain respect, man, because the day a farmer came and told me, Ki, Bhaiya, you're 50% farmer, I cried because I was accepted into the tribe. 50% farmer is not a freaking joke. And they were being generous. I would say I was like 25% farmer by then. But the point is, if you go to that level, then acceptance comes first. Yeah. There's a lot more to that, but I think I hope I've made my point clear.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's no
wonderful.
cookie cut answer. You've got to become a part of their tribe, period.
Yeah. So adding to what Kunal said, there are two aspects to this. Okay. So one is there is a challenge in the villages today. Okay. The next generation is moving to cities. Okay. I've seen this starkly at Ladakh, and I see this every day as part of my work with Learning Foundation in and around the villages in Indore. So Ladakh, we went to a village called Tar. It's a beautiful, one of the only villages that does not have a road access. So you have to do a 5 kilometer trek up a hill, passing through a gorge, and you land into this beautiful place, which is supposed to have 100 people, but there are only 9 elderly people today living there. And we trek upstairs. It's such a beautiful, suddenly I see there's a field which is all orange, and I go closer and I find that it's an apricot tree and the apricot are falling on the ground, nobody to pick them up because there's no youngster there anymore. And there's glacial water flowing in front of the house. I was actually afraid to wash my face with it, that I'll dirty that water. But the sad part again, the next generation, they don't see an opportunity there. But thankfully, in that place, we actually found a boy from that village who decided to come back. He built an ecosystem. He refurnished some of those houses, got it into a tourist mode, so that more and more villagers can actually come back. Youngsters can come back. It's the same story, that the realization for this coming back and working comes only when you spend some time outside.
Yeah.
Many of these leave their class 12th. After class 12, they'll do their colleges. They're in Jammu, Delhi, Chandigarh, live in those 1 room, 4 people accommodations, while they have acres of land in the villages there. They only realize this by the time they're, about 30. And that's when it hits them, that what is it that I'm doing with my life? So that 10 years is blindly following what the society tells you, what your corporate lifestyle tells you, get a job, do this. And same thing I see in and around the villages in Indore. So I went to a village where saw the son and the father sitting in a shop. So started chatting with the son. He was busy with his mobile and said, father knows everything. I don't know anything. And I asked, what are you doing? So he says, I'm in a college. What will you do after college? He says, I'll get a job there. वो कॉल सेंटर बहुत चलता है, देन शॉपिंग मॉल में बहुत जॉब रहता है. मैंने कहा तू वहाँ कान साफ करेगा, पैसा अच्छा देगा तो करेगा. That thing which comes. And here is a beautiful setup as his father is running. His father has a small kirana shop, but he also does a chakki, atta chakki, and he, creates all those. I said, तो यहाँ पे इसका, why don't you create a brand out of these? ये जो चक्की में पीस रहे हैं, why don't you create different and brand and probably sell it into the city if you want to, because it's a great opportunity. But उसका दिमाग अभी नहीं चल रहा है. Maybe 10 years later he'll get that and come back and say, this is what I want to do. And talking about, the stark nature of the money, I met a woman there who runs a kirana shop. Old lady, 60 years old. It's an extension of her house. It's a small window kind. And she earns 20 rupees a day. Okay. Now that gives you you talk of income uplift, you talk of income earnings and whatnot, a 5 trillion economy. But that's a lady sitting there who's earning 20 rupees a day. And when I talk to her, she's happy about it. She says, ये मेरा 20 रुपए है. This is my 20 rupees. She only gets annoyed when her granddaughter comes and picks up a packet of chips and eats it. So then her earning falls from 20 to 5 rupees or 10 rupees. Okay. Now, I don't have a magic wand there when I'm talking to her, but can I increase her 20 to, let's say, a 40, 50 rupees? I can do that. It's feasible. I know at least small steps, or maybe a different product mix, or maybe buying from a different source may help her to get there. And I'm happy there. I don't want to do a drastic change there where I want to convert them into a very successful, as you said, Kunal, that, we are not trying to create big enterprises here. It's these small enterprises and and the numbers are really shocking when you go down. Like I work with a bunch of women who make these 5 patti kada biopesticide. 5 women over 1 year sold 12,000 rupees of that. That is 200 rupees per woman per month. Now I talk to students as well. So I told them that's the amount you'll spend going out on a pizza. Okay. And this is a month's work for a woman there. That's what she earns. Now that gives you a context. Now, though that looks stark, I say, how can we, take this 200 to, let's say, 300, let's say 400. How can we do incremental jumps and maybe get some people involved who can take this to a larger figure? But again, we are not trying to create a large conglomerate there. It's a small business that is self-sufficient. It's decent and takes care of the economy there and those realities.
No, maybe I think it's worthwhile to delve into this part a little more deeper, right? See, for instance, today, for most of us who are urbanites, like you said, when you hit your 30s, you realize that certain things are done. Then you want to go back to your basics and you ask. All of us have gone through this phase, and at one level, you also realize that in these kind of rural India as a context, their livelihoods were interwoven in such a way where they had wealth, but not necessarily monetary wealth. Right? There was a neighbor and a person who would take care of the houses, who would do the houses. There was somebody who would take care of certain reason, and it was designed in what today we call fancy terms as the circular economy. Right? And everything was rowing around the neighboring villages and it was getting done. But now at one level, but the aspirations are also globalizing it, right? The YouTube shorts have become viral. Almost every village I see has one guy who wants to be a YouTube influencer. And I was looking at the numbers for Google. I mean, what Google publishes in the YouTube in terms of how many Indians who are getting into YouTube. The numbers is crazy, right? So many people think that that's another aspiration there, and that aspiration is also taking shapes and forms, right? So the question that I'm exploring, you talk about, like, it need not be a big enterprise, but a small enterprise. But how does these conversations on aspirations really take place? Do you make them see that you have a big wealth that we urbanites don't really have and are living in let's say highly polluted, high AQI, low AQI levels of city, and then you have that wealth, and then you explore that, or what kind of ways in which when you're dealing with working with, let's say these youngsters and helping them discover entrepreneurial, how do you tackle the question of aspiration?
Okay, so the important part here is to not judge them on what is the earning and not talk to them about the aspirations or the indicators of money that we bring from the city. So it's about where are you today? How can you be a step better tomorrow? Okay. And the most important thing, how can you make it aspirational for the next generation?
Yeah.
How do you make it stick that, this is my family business? Like I met a lady in a village where she used to make bangles, lakh bangles. Okay. Now she took so much pride to tell that, I learned this from my mother-in-law. She taught me this. I still make it. She's about 55 years old. But her grudge is that, there is no one to run this now because her both sons have different kind of occupations. Their wives are helping them in different businesses or not in this scenario anymore. And her lament is also that, there's earlier 12 villages, people used to come heart me here and they used to buy from my shop. Now there's nobody to buy it. Now, all that she needs is a consistent business which can grow, number one. And number two, can the income be so much that inspires her daughter-in-law or her son to come back and help with her? I think creating the business as aspirational and showing a steady income is something which can encourage the next generation to come and make those businesses suitable. I think one of the examples again from Ladakh was the same thing where the students go away. So when we worked on that homestay project, the important factor was that if these children see their parents earning, let's say 2,000, 3,000 a day, just renting out a room, maybe they'll leave those single room apartments from Delhi and come back and maybe expand, bring in new ideas. So I think creating whatever is there today, how do you make it sustainable? Give them new ideas to work on maybe. Can we try this? Can we try this? And once it becomes a little stable, it becomes aspirational, there is money coming in, the next generation hopefully comes in, is all that we target.
Beautiful. Kunal, how do you
I think
deal
we
with the
should,
question of aspiration?
I think agribusiness should have a rural MBA program in about 2 or 3 years' time, because rural MBA is really simple and you should actually contemplate that. I'm working with a friend in Malaysia on similar lines, and I don't know what shape that's going to take. The reason, there were kids. So my first startup, the guy it was a Section 8 company, so there were only directors. There was no CEO kind of thing. Same problem. The kids didn't want to get into hard labor. They wanted to go to a city and get a job. We could have had conversations with them, but these are the three things we knew. You have to raise the income. You have to make sure that they see pride in what they are doing. You have to leverage digital and create a story and a brand, even though small, which gets you a better margin, period. That's it, right? It can't be more complex than that. They know how to sell chemical stuff. We taught them to go a little natural and also taught them how to do organic, right? Not rocket science. They know how to do it. We were like the operating system, creating like an infrastructure on which all this dance could happen. After I lost my dad, I had to get out of the business, recuperate, because it was a sort of unlearning, 360 unlearning for me. I needed some time. Today, the same kids who wanted to go to Sihor and get a job near the mandi, one guy has a successful cold pressed oil business where his savings on a daily basis is insane. He's created a traction in the hinterland. Forget a city like Indore or Bhopal. There is market. But people from surrounding villages are consuming cold pressed oil. His younger brother has a ghee business, which is giving him daily margins, which you can't even imagine. Today, they have a small cold pressed machine shop in the village where there is protein-based work happening, which is like dal, lentil, value addition, vadi, blah, 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 which is employing almost 12 or 13 or 15 women who actually wanted to migrate to Bhopal. So the point of the matter is, no matter how hard we say it is a multivariate problem, at the end of the day, only monetization is not going to help. You have to give them monetization. You have to give them respect, and you have to create Instagram and YouTube also allows you to create very small little niche brands, which now these guys are learning how to leverage. So yes, let everybody be an influencer, but I know kids in Konkan, I know kids in Assam, I know kids in Manipur who are creating small little niche libraries or community Airbnb kind of models using Instagram and YouTube. Nothing wrong with that. Let it happen.
No, I'm not saying anything wrong specifically.
No, 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 no,
I'm
no,
only
no.
saying in terms of the aspiration as also, in a certain sense, move towards a certain way is where I was exploring. There's phenomenal business to be made there also.
Yeah. I think that in a nutshell, you have to work with these guys to sort of create the next generation of entrepreneurs in India. Where there is the deep understanding of the supply chain logistics and procurement and efficiencies. There is leverage of digital to reach new marketplaces and do branding like has never been done in India. Our branding is going to be very different. It's going to be, we are a land of Fevicol and VIP, boss. We are not Nike. That branding won't work over here.
Fully endorse what he's saying. Some of the examples that we are working on. So at Udyam, we have been working on 4 basic pillars. So we look into sourcing, we look into market linkage, we look into innovation, and we look into training. There's an example where we work with a lady who was running a small cloth shop, and we just connected with her, understood. So for 20 years, her 20 years back, her mother-in-law had given her 1,000 rupees. The apna business shuru karo. No. So imagine with that small earning from that shop, first from her home, then she opened a small shop. So she had kept on improving her income. So when we started talking to her, we realized that she was buying clothes from a store in Indore, and she would buy about 20,000 worth of clothes and make about 5,000 rupees as the overall profit. Okay. I said, where are you buying your clothes from? She said, this particular shop. Bahut acha, his behavior is very nice. Every time I go there, he offers me tea. I just looked into the sourcing. We talked about how do why don't you buy from here, the distributor, instead of this retailer? The first transaction, her profit jumped by 57%. That's the potential we are sitting on, just one intervention. And she was delighted. Now imagine that money, that extra money she's making. She will buy probably for her grandchildren new books, new bags, new uniforms. Now her family is stable. They are earning everybody is working, but then that empowers her so much.
Yeah.
Now, this is just one intervention. When he talks, now imagine her son's wife, her daughter-in-law would love to, with that kind of earning, she might be pursued, encouraged to take up that business of running that cloth shop. Otherwise, that earning, if it is not below a particular level, she expects, either through a manrega or through a job or through a labor work. It makes sense if you earn more. Coming to that branding part, same thing with the Panch Patti Kada. We work with some students in the college. So the college students, we told them very clearly, why do you want to do case studies of USA and Europe? You're a BBA student. It's a college in a village in Sandalpur, beautiful institute called Singaji Institute, and run by a wonderful guy called Pranjal Dubey. Now, he set up this college in a village and all local students. So we caught hold of the students and said, these women are making this Panch Patti Kada. They sell it in an old Bisleri bottle for 20 rupees. And that's where, I love what Kunal said on the branding. We asked them to make a business plan. Okay. How do you create a marketing plan using the 4 Ps, product, price, promotion, place, everything? And they came up that I had a 30-member student team working with me, 20 of them girls who would have been married off had they not, their parents allowed them to go to college.
Yeah.
So 20 girls in that 30-member team, they did a SWOT analysis. They did a competitive analysis. They did a product placement plan, this distribution, that distribution, and they came up with a beautiful brand. So the bottle now, which was 20 rupees in an old distillery bottle, sells in a beautifully packaged and beautifully branded green colored bottle. It sells as Panch Patti Kada. In local villages, it sells for 100 rupees. And if we send it to city folks like you, me, Venki, we will sell it for 290 rupees. But that branding is so exciting that when we went to the village women and said, this is the bottle, they were laughing, beautiful. They were so excited about it. And suddenly their children were coming and holding the bottle. So it was this old, dirty green distillery bottle and this beautifully packaged bottle with a nice label on it. And it created so much aspiration. So then again, the second part of what Kunal said, then there were reels made. So during the chana season, the reels spread around every village that, ye bottle, isme humne khet mein dala hai. The results were fantastic. This, that. Oh, I'm hoping next season, before the sowing season, we can sell much more of those bottles through them. But
Absolutely.
again,
Absolutely.
aspirations. How do you create those with those branding and other things?
Venki, just one short story.
Sure, please.
2013, I was in Riyadh. In 2014, I was in Riyadh. That was my last posting at Accenture. I'd applied to 21 places for an internship to start working at Hinterland. I got 18 rejects. Sonam Wangchuk was one person who said, Aja. And I was supposed to teach hockey there and English over there. My dad had a heart attack. This is 2013, actually. My dad had a heart attack in 2014, so I couldn't go. But the thing which blew me away about Sonam Wangchuk teaching business and branding and chemistry and marketing to kids was the apricot example, which he was saying. They were making apricot jams, which didn't need to have any preservative, and it needed to be sold to tourists. Such a beautiful, simple little idea. Math ho gaya, chemistry ho gaya, bottling hua, so you've learned the physics of a material. So you've done material science, you've done basic arithmetic, you've done communication, you've gone and sold it. So you're talking to people. Finito, I'm done. Now that is first principles from childhood. Imagine where these guys would be if they ended up going to an IIM Ahmedabad in about 6 years' time. What could they do over there? It's mesmerizing. Like, I love the YouTube numbers because nowadays when I take the Uber or take the Ola, I'm talking to these guys. The Uber, Ola guys are telling me, okay, my child has clocked 1,000 minutes on YouTube minutes, but now the monetization is about this far. We're going to get this. Our content is not making sense because of this, but this is what we are trying to do. Now they're building a community of kids. They're freaking almost like learning hole in the wall, which was, Saugata Mitra's seminal paper. They're literally doing that because of YouTube. Right? So I think the hybrid model of marketing, branding, which never used to happen in India, you could sit here and criticize BJP for the rest of your life, but the amount of cool stuff they have done, because we stay there. I stay in a village. I see what's happening over there. So I'm not even ready to talk to you because I know what the hell is happening over there. Now, roads are getting made. There is water. There is bijli. They'll do 1,000 wrong things, but they've done 1,000,000 good things also. And the kids are leveraging all this. There is a geo today which allows them to learn on the fly. Who was thinking branding in India in hinterland 20 years back? Nobody. Anyways, crazy stuff, man. Your voice.
Sorry, it's beautiful, which is what I wanted to move to the next question, which is focused on incubators, right? See, today it's very clear that Tanmay and I, we were both in Nizamabad. And I was talking to the folks who are running the Kakatiya sandbox. And they have a model where you create a maker space and create where the people to come in and then figure ways for them to discover newer entrepreneurship. And I kept wondering, is this a urban idea that we are trying to bring into rural, or if we were to really relook at rural incubators, right? In terms of in what ways can we create clusters, right? Because in traditionally Bangalore had once a cluster, right? Of all tech startups come in, and then now people till date know that if you want to get funding, I have to go to Bangalore for my startup. So that kind of mindset is coming in there, and because of the certain clusters and certain networks that have been built in, right? And now when we are dealing with this kind of a network that has to be built with, when there are more oldies and rather than youngs, and this is a global problem, right? I mean, China has been running programs to send youngsters to rural and give them on a break, give them funded projects and where they can work and build businesses. Government has been sponsoring this, right? Whereas now in India, we need to create these from ground level up, to create these kind of clusters of networks of Kunals and Tanmays who are all, trying to tinker around specific interventions and areas. From your experience, what do you think is a good design to design an incubator where we build these kind of clusters and networks?
I'll take a stab at it. See, the first problem is most of the people in India are not even aware of the copious amounts of experiments which have happened in India. Let's take a small example. Near Anand, near Ahmedabad, Dhirubhai Ambani opened a college known as DACIIIT. Very simple logic. Go gather good IIT type professors from different places, whether it's humanities or engineering, get them onto the same campus. In the 8th semester, all the engineers are sent to rural India. Right? It was happening about 15 years back. I have friends from DACIIT. I have friends from IIT. And you can see the difference between both these people, because Dhirubhai Ambani's college was actually producing problem solvers. It's a very controversial thing to say, but I've seen it with my own eyes. I've seen how their approach to hacking something is just completely different. The IIT kids will get you the stuff done with like precision, which you can't even imagine. But what I was noticing about these DACIIT kids was they were thinking like crazy because of that 8th semester. There was a lot of breakdown. There was emotional breakdown because you're looking at reality which you've never seen before. That's number one. Meaning, look at what experiments have already happened in lieu of what you're asking. That is number one. Number two, no, it's not an urban concept, because let us assume that you're the government. You need a good gram panchayat. You need a good block. You need a good district. You then need a good state. You then need collaboration. And then you're going to be a domestic brand. And then you can go international. It's as simple as that. Right? Which basically means we are doing nothing different to what Gandhi must have thought, to what Aurobindo must have thought, to what Rabindranath Tagore must have thought, to what Modi must be thinking, to what the Gujarat model is. Because if you haven't lived in Gujarat, you have no idea what works for India. We've stayed in Gujarat. We have meandered through Gujarat. Like, the housewives there are freaking entrepreneurs, boss. रॉ मटेरियल कहां से लेना है, सिंपल कॉस्ट में वैल्यू एडिशन कैसे करना है, ब्रांड कैसे बनाना है. लाइक द हाउसवाइव्स ऑफ गुजरात, द हाउसवाइव्स ऑफ पंजाब, these people are entrepreneurs, boss. You can't teach that. You can inculcate that DNA and you can spread that. So no, it's not an urban concept. It's a very desi Indian concept, and that needs to happen. That is number two. Number three, there is a lot of value in scale, no doubt about it. But if you only build scale and you don't have this bottom layer which is supplying you what the civilization needs, what are you going to do with all the technology? Right? The yield has to go up. There has to be good forecasting. There has to be an understanding of commodities and futures and options and, trade. There has to be an understanding of trade deficit. How are you going to do that? There are 900 million people who are in the hinterland. There are 200 million people who are your bank ka guard and Jahanuma ka guard and the waiter and Phalana, who have deep understanding of niche work, micro-entrepreneurship. And then there are 400 million other people who are doing whatever the hell they are doing in the cities. So the kind of inclusive model which a democracy in India gives you, it's doable. And I'm not going to call it an urban or a rural myth. It is just what this lay of the land needs. It's as simple as that. You're a systems thinker, right? The context in USSR or China or Australia is very different to our context. We have to understand what this land needs, what is your DNA, what is your culture, what is your civilization, create a wrapper around it.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think this is what I talk about as well. So he has now stolen my words. But
Sorry.
then, so if you see what the colonials did to a country, let's take the British and India. Okay, they picked up the cotton, they picked up the coal, they picked up the iron, and they had all their factories running in UK. This is exactly what's happening with our villages and cities today. We are converting our cities, our villages into raw material supply hubs. Okay, that's not where the solutions are, because then you'll have more and more people coming from the villages into cities looking for jobs, because there is nothing more than raw material being grown there. Now imagine you incubate businesses, incubate startups that operate out of those villages and add value. Let's say I'm growing a commodity. Can I actually package and sell it from there? And Amul, Lijjat Papad has given a beautiful model of that as well to us. So we have examples in front of us. Now, can we create a brand that grows from the villages and gets delivered not just to that locality, but all over the country? The moment you do that, the moment you incubate businesses in those rural milieu, is where you actually bring actual prosperity back. You actually stabilize. The cities are already full of people. There's nowhere to go, and the quality of life, we keep talking about that. You have this beautiful landscapes and sitting for you in the villages. I know of a guy who wanted to join an IIM course and get into a multinational job, and he had 40 acres of land. I said, why don't you figure out something in that 40 acres? You have a huge land. Why don't you figure out something which can be a value-added packaging of maybe some fruits, maybe some commodities? तुम दाल बना रहे हो, दाल उगा रहे हो, तो why don't you convert it into a packed tur dal, polish it, and then deliver it from there as a branded commodity? But that's where the challenges lies. And being in the city, understanding the rural context is absolutely not what's easy to do. So I have students when I go for these startup India pitches. I'm a part of a lot of these programs, and I deliver lectures, and they come and pitch. There was an instance where I had 8 teams pitching their idea. All 8 wanted to make an app. You know what I did next? Next day, I said, okay, fine, everybody wants to do a app, fine. Tomorrow morning, we had a very busy local market around that college. So it's an absolute, a typical town market with, bustling with people, vehicles going crisscross. I said, go there in the morning, talk to 4 businesses. When did they start the business? What are the challenges? And don't offer any solutions. Okay, just listen to them. 4 hours later, they were a changed lot. I said, just go and listen to the place, smell the place, and talk to people. And it was an absolutely different set of people who were talking to me after that. And all that we need to do today is, show them the real India, show them the villages, show them the problems that are there, and ask them, can you build businesses out of this? Can you create solutions out of this? And I fully second what Kunal keeps on telling. We don't need huge enterprises. We need a business which solves a local village's problem, a town's problem, and gives you enough money to sustain you and your family and maybe another 10 employees. You don't need 1,000 people business running everywhere, $1 billion valuation business running everywhere. You need these small solution providers who can create small solutions which address the problem at the root level. And that's where, incubating these ideas makes a lot of good sense. I personally incubate 2 such ideas. So I know it is not a very costly option. With my kind of automotive brains, I know aisa kar lo, and they really worked, and it creates simple steps, create such beautiful results.
Agreed. By the way, 2011 IIT Delhi alumnus Shashank Party has something known as Jagrati Yatra, which used to do exactly that. Take people into hinterland. Simple model. Chuk chuk gadi lo, railways lo, gav. And he's now going back to Gorakhpur. He's getting associated with ground level politics. Yeah. It will happen, boss. It will happen one way or the other. It will happen. We are bullish.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
There's lot happening. I think, and that's where I'm very glad that we spoke more on the opportunities rather than the problems there. And I think we need more tribes of Kunals and Tanmays and who can create these clusters and I think it's a lovely conversation. Thank you very much. And I hope we are able to at least do our bit in terms of contributing to the resurgence rather than treating these places as raw materials. Right? And if we are still treating this as raw materials, what's the difference between us and the colonials? Right. So in that ways, on that note, thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you for joining in. I hope to further have more specific conversations and see how we can maybe explore and more create new possibilities there. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Venki. Thank you, Kunal. Wonderful talking to you.
Thanks, Venki.
Thank you.